The New York Yankees, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Boston Red Sox have all been reached out to by the St. Louis Cardinals with interest for Nolan Arenado. We'll see where he goes, but it looks like this thing could get done before the start of spring training. What's up with Alex Bregman, the latest updates there, and we'll get into some updates from the San Diego Padres now that they've resolved their ownership issue to a certain degree as far as what trades might ultimately be coming down the pike. And finally, we'll finally rank where all these teams ultimately finish this offseason as we gear up for the start of spring training. That and more ahead next here at The Upside. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us late on a Friday evening. If you guys wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe, certainly means a lot to us when you do that. Spam the hearts in the chat if you're enjoying yourself here. And say hello. Let us know who your favorite team is, where you're watching from, and join our chat. We have a very friendly community here. Feel free to join us anytime. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. I know some of you in our chat are already saying that you really try to get in here first every single time. Well, I encourage you guys to turn on your notifications for us on all three of those platforms. That way, anytime we go live, you'll be notified by any one of those choices there. But first story is Nolan Arenado and the Los Angeles Dodgers, the New York Yankees, and the Boston Red Sox. A report from the St. Louis Cardinals Dispatch, or the St. Louis Dispatch anyway, about the Cardinals, stated that the Cardinals were the ones who had reached out to the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Red Sox about the availability of Nolan Arenado. This tells me a couple of different things. One is that the Cardinals were the one that reached out to all three of these teams, obviously. Two is that they might be willing to increase the amount of money they're going to eat on Nolan Arenado's contract. If you remember, they were willing to eat about $15 million of the deal that would have sent him to Houston. Obviously, they didn't work with Nolan Arenado to get that deal done because he turned that deal down. However, Nolan Arenado has made no bones about his willingness to go out to the Dodgers. He actually said over the last couple of days he'd be open to going to the Red Sox. And about at the end of December, beginning of January is when he let them know the Yankees would be just fine as well. So no surprise here that St. Louis is trying to get this thing resolved before spring training. Sounds like they don't want this to be a storyline as they enter spring training with the young team that they're going to have. Now, what does Nolan Arenado still bring to the table? He's still a productive player. Not nearly the same player that he was at the height of his career, but he's still got a good enough presence over there at third base that he can handle it defensively. Offense has taken a little bit of a hit over the last couple of years. How much does he have left in the tank remains to be seen. Maybe this will be the final contract for him because he does have 3 years and $64 million left on it. But what this does mean is that the Dodgers, who continually have said all offseason long, no, we can't add more people. No, we don't have the money. We can't figure it out. Please. I mean, they were telling us that before they signed one person. They've signed how many? How many people have they signed this offseason? How many deferred contracts have they handed out? And their most recent contract, Kirby Yates anyway, didn't have deferred money in there. So I don't believe the Dodgers anymore when they say they do not have the money to be able to figure this one out or that they don't have the roster flexibility. They have two pieces on that roster that I think they should be able to at least waive or cut or whatever they want to do or just trade them and eat the salary, those being Chris Taylor and Rojas as well. There is a spot there for Nolan Arenado if they want to bring him in. As far as the Yankees, we've known all offseason about their pursuit for a third baseman. We thought Arenado might be a good fit. I thought Bregman would be the best fit. They don't have the money for that one. If the Cardinals are willing to eat enough money to where they don't have to send Stroman in this deal, then possibly this deal gets done before the start of spring training. How much money would that take? Well, you're probably talking at least $25, maybe $30 million off of that deal. Most of that money probably coming in the first year of that deal. That way it can offset some of the salary this year, and then next year the Yankees would be on the hook for the majority of it as well. So curious to see the Yankees inclusion here. The one we've heard over the last couple of days most fervently is the Boston Red Sox, given their nature of how hot cold they are on Alex Bregman, with the the GM, etc., not really being too in on him, the rest of the scouts and so forth loving Alex Bregman. You can see why they might be looking for another option, something that they can all agree on. And Alex Bregman, well, I think he'd be perfect for that Red Sox lineup for years to come. You can understand why they're a little hesitant to spend that money. They haven't really spent money on a big player in a very long time. And this would be one way of getting a shorter-term contract with a player who certainly has the profile to be a good offensive piece for them. So we'll see what ultimately happens here for Arenado. If I had to put money on it right now, I mean, anytime you hear the Dodgers are interested in the player, you almost always have to think they're the favorite. I think the Red Sox are a pretty good bet here as well. If the money is right, the Yankees could get this one done. So I think it's a fairly even three-horse race. But like I said, when you have the Dodgers in there, if they're legitimately interested in any way, shape, or form in Nolan Arenado, I'd expect them to figure it out. And as far as Muncy, who's already over there at third base, they could move him to second, utilize him as kind of that Ben Zobrist, Michael Young utility player all over the diamond, give players a day off. And if Freddie Freeman isn't exactly healthy coming into spring, or they just want to take it easy on him this spring, or into the regular season, they can have Muncy over there at first base whenever they want to give Freeman a day off of his feet as well. But I appreciate you guys joining us. Got quite a few people in our chat already. Welcome in Cowboys Nation, Holly, Ryan, Verlis, Master Vinman, Rafe, John, Coffee Time. Welcome in, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us once again. Man, did you see Nico getting those threats? Yes, I did. I try not to mention those specific words, but yes, I did. I did see those. The one thing I did see that you might not have seen, Rafe, is the actual picture from a Laker fan who was at the hotel on January 7th when Nico went to the hotel to visit with Rob Pelinka and initiate the conversation about, hey, what would it take? Would you be interested in Luka Doncic? That picture, he didn't know what he had at the time. He didn't even know who Nico Harrison was. He just saw Rob Pelinka and said, hey, I want to take a picture of him because I'm a Laker fan. And that picture just surfaced today, so I invite you guys to check it out. The day the future of the Mavericks changed in one picture. Wow, that was a picture. Anyway, Rafe, I was wondering if Rendon is happy or sad he won't be the third baseman this year. I don't think he cares. He's counting his money. I think he's been wanting a way out for a while now. His performance on the field hasn't warranted him being in the lineup. One other bit of news from the Angels is that they did get to Yohan Moncada done, 1 year, $5 million. He's expected to be the starting third baseman this year. And as far as the Angels go, they did lose the arbitration case with Luis Rengifo as well. He's going to get $5 million this year. Rafe, Padres and Hayward, they did just sign Connor Joe. So as far as the Padres, they're starting to make some moves in free agency. The trade market is where they're really going to make their moves. So let's get to our second storyline, and that being the San Diego Padres. They've been geared up to make trades this entire offseason. Just with raises on their current roster, they're going to have a higher payroll than what it was last year. And with the financial commitments that they were already with last year, an increased budget was not in the plan. That's why there is an expectation that they will try to shed a little bit of salary to get back down to where they were last year. And that's just internal raises as to why they're having to spend more money. So look for a trade of Dylan Cease. I would not expect those rumors to quiet down anytime soon. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets dealt during spring training or even in the first couple of months of the season. But I would certainly expect it to happen by the trade deadline with one of their two starters, Michael King or Dylan Cease. They save more money by trading Dylan Cease. He has more trade value as well. So I would expect him to be the one that goes out the door. The other trade piece that they have is Luis Ariz. They've been having a hard time coming to terms on a contract extension. Sounds like their offer was in the neighborhood of what Jake Cronenworth had gotten, but on a shorter-term deal. They were looking around 3 years at $40 million for Luis Ariz. That was about a month ago that those reports surfaced. We haven't heard anything as far as any progress on those contract extension talks. Same thing with Vladimir Guerrero, but we'll get into those in just a moment. But as far as the Padres go, they might try to offload his salary as well to get underneath where they were last year. Now, their ownership having been decided at least a little bit in the courts, still the lawsuit ongoing anyway, but there is some progress to report there. Maybe they'll have a little bit more money to spend now that Seidler's been named as the man in charge there, but we'll have to wait and see. I would just say that the Padres have been very quiet all offseason. With very few players left on the free agent market, I would expect their biggest acquisitions to come via the trade market. John, what's the news on Arenado re-engaged with the Yankees? That was the St. Louis Dispatch, the report that the Cardinals were the team that reached out to the Yankees about the availability of Nolan Arenado. That presumably the talks with Houston were around $15 million as far as how much they would have to eat. Now, as far as the Yankees, they weren't comfortable even with that much salary being eaten to bring in Nolan Arenado. That would push them too far past the tax. They were not comfortable with that. That leads you to believe the Cardinals are either A, going to offer a little bit more money in compensation, or offer to do something else to make that deal work for the Yankees. So, like I said, I think it's a three-team race here between all three of them. Anytime the Dodgers are in there, you can never rule them out, honestly. I'd lean more towards the Dodgers, even though it's pretty much an even split between all three of those teams as to where Arenado goes. Coffee time. No way Dodgers get another one. I mean, I would say way. I just told you guys they have a couple of guys on the back end of their roster they can go ahead and afford to waive and not worry about the salary implications. Remember, they're already going to have a payroll of around $400 million. That does not include the amount of tax they're going to be spending as well. And they're still going to be bringing back Clayton Kershaw as well, and whoever they bring in at the trade deadline. This is a team that is not worried about finances. And if you're wondering, well, they got too many players, surely they don't have a roster spot for them. They certainly will. Chris Taylor has not been a very good player at the major league level in years. I would expect him to be the first one out the door. Maybe they try to get rid of an infielder. In that case, I'd say Rojas, but Taylor can also be an infielder. But he has a little bit more positional flexibility as far as I'm concerned. And hey, you never know who comes into spring training swinging a hot bat out of the two of them. Whoever's not gets cut. Maybe that's how it will work out. Rafe, man, this weekend is going to be great. AD debut. Yes, that will be tomorrow. I will be watching that one very closely. A lot of stuff happening tomorrow anyway. UFC 312 and Super Bowl upset. We'll see. I mean, the Eagles are definitely the underdog there. Brady, do I get a shout out? Welcome in, Brady. Appreciate you joining us. Sean, Chester, welcome back. Appreciate all you guys joining us. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe, we would greatly appreciate it. Anytime you hit those hearts in the chats, if you're enjoying yourself, having a good time, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Very fun community here. If you guys have been to any of our videos before, you can kind of see how our chat works. I try to engage with every single one of you guys. So I appreciate all the support you guys give us. So thumbs up to every single one of you out there. Let's see here. Sean, the Blue Jays GM said that they won't be signing anyone. They will only add via trade. And Jason Hayward just signed with the Padres. Again, the Padres just kind of tinkering around the edges. Hayward doesn't bring a lot to the table, I think, at this point in his career. Connor Joe gives a little bit more. He's had more recent success anyway. But again, two very small signings there for the Padres as far as I'm concerned. Rafe, Josh Smith is our new Michael Young. I would agree there. What's up, Chester? Welcome in. Brady, Upside Sports Network. People are saying that Nico Harrison isn't smart enough to be a GM because of the way he looks. I don't know about that one. No, people there's always the crazy, conspiracy theorists that you get on Twitter. That does not make a fan base. I'll put it that way. If Twitter were actual reality, the world would be a very different place. I'll put it that way. Rafe, Nico has lighten it up there, Rafe. As far as the trade itself, I get it. The trade happened. It sucks. It's been about a week now since the trade happened. It's something that'll stick in the craw of all of our minds for the next 20, 30, 40 years. As sports fans, not even just as a Maverick fan, but as a sports fan, as far as how to not trade a superstar talent, no matter what sport it is. However, it's been about a week. The trade has happened. It's time to move on and support the new players that are on the team. You might have your problems with Nico Harrison chanting, fire him outside of the stadium. That's all fine. Protest until he quits or whatever the case may be. But at a certain point, we have to realize this is already done. There's no undo button. There's no, let's go back in time and change this from happening. That's not happening. I'm going to cheer for Luka even though he's a member of the Lakers. It gives me a reason to watch the Lakers even more than I already would have had a reason to because I just like watching sports. I like cheering for Luka. I think he's a great player to watch. And I'm going to cheer for him out there in LA. I'm going to think that it sucks that I don't get to watch him on my favorite team. I'm going to think it sucks not getting to show my kids that's the player you want to see as far as loyalty, the same way I got to look at Dirk Nowitzki my entire life. That's something I'm going to miss out on. That's something that's not common in sports, that the Dallas Mavericks are very different in that way from other sports franchises. Tim Duncan for the Spurs comes to mind as far as athletes with one team that showed that incredible loyalty. Derek Jeter, Kobe Bryant to a little bit lesser degree, but stayed pretty much his entire career there, aside, of course, from the draft day trade. And then, of course, the talks that, hey, I want to be traded. No, I don't want to be traded. We never really had that with Dirk. We never really had that with Tim Duncan. Never really had that with Derek Jeter. Mariano Rivera. Those athletes are fewer and farther between, and that's why those guys are lifted up even higher based on how they were able to stay so loyal to their team, and their team stayed loyal to them. The Mavericks unfortunately changed their entire fabric of the organization. What was important to them as a franchise was loyalty with Dirk Nowitzki. The bottom of his own statue says loyalty never fades away. The loyalty that they showed Luka Doncic completely disappeared. That faded away for sure, and there was no loyalty at the end of the day. So yes, the trade sucks. Yes, Nico Harrison made an absolute blunder as a GM. Yes, one of the worst trades we've ever seen in professional sports history. At the end of the day, it's already happened. Can't cry over spilled milk. You can, kick and scream all you want. There is no undo button. It's time to move forward. So, speaking of Luka Doncic, anyway, his debut will be Monday. That is something I will be watching quite closely as well, especially now that they made the trade for Mark Williams, and just see how that team, continues to go. I think they're in a good spot to make a decent run this year. Do I think they'll win the title? Probably not, but they're in a good spot. All right, Master Vinman, what do the Cubs have to accomplish this year for you to sing "Go Cubs Go" on your show? I don't know. They're a team that's kind of stuck in the middle right now. They say they're all in for 25, but yet they're kind of still in the middle of what they've even done with this roster. One step forward, bringing in Kyle Tucker. 2 steps back, trading away Bellinger, trading away Paredes, and a prospect. You have Horner out injured anyway for the first month of the year. You bring in Birdie. You're still pretty much in the same position you were last year. The one spot they have improved is their closer spot, bringing in Ryan Presley. I would still like to see them bring in Alex Bregman. I think they're still the favorite in my mind. That's my prediction for where he will go. But as far as them, getting to a World Series championship level contending team, we're talking about a trade for another number 1 starter like a Dylan Cease. Bringing in Alex Bregman for starters to at least get you in the conversation with teams like the Braves and Diamondbacks and Phillies and Mets. That doesn't get you in the conversation with the Dodgers. Other moves that they would have to make to get there, probably another number 1 starter. Say Framber Valdez is available at the trade deadline. I know, Willard, if you're in our chat, it's okay. If Framber Valdez has 1 year left, if things go poorly for Houston, they might try to get some assets for him. If things go poorly out there in Seattle for the first couple of months of the year, maybe they revisit the idea of trading Luis Castillo. That'd be another pitcher I'd be on the lookout for. And if the Arizona Diamondbacks start off terribly, look at Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly as far as names that might be on the trade block as well. As far as hitters, maybe around the trade deadline, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Kyle Tucker is their own guy that they have. Those are names to watch for around the trade deadline. Now, speaking of Vlad Guerrero, I did want to touch on his contract extension talks. We've heard basically nothing for about 3 weeks now. There was some optimism right around the turn of the year, 24 to 25, that there was some positivity that the team was starting to get a little closer to what Vladdy was looking for as far as a contract, but we still have heard nothing, which for me, it's fine to hear nothing for about a week. That means they're probably still tinkering over the final details. But we're less than a week away from spring training now. I just don't think there's any progress that was made enough to consider this thing close to being done. I think we're going to see him miss out on his quote-unquote deadline for the start of spring training to get that extension done. If they're close, maybe he'll open it up to a little bit into spring training. But I haven't heard anything as far as those rumors lately, and that leads me to believe they're pretty much at a standstill. What that means for the Blue Jays is you're going to hear about it every single day. Every question a reporter asks is, hey, you lost today. Does this impact your decision of whether or not you want to stay here next year? Hey, you've gone on a 3-game losing streak. Hey, what do you feel about turf playing in Toronto? Would you rather play somewhere where you don't have to worry about turf? Hey, Vladdy, how do you think of your team all the way? Or you're having a great season there in Toronto. You'll love it there as far as the fan base, the city, but the team has lost, 40 games out of 60. Are you still willing to commit to the franchise? Those are the type of questions he's going to have to field for an entire 3-4 months until the trade deadline. That's not a tenable situation as far as I'm concerned. All right, let's try to finish up some of these comments here and get on to some of the rankings here. I'm not even mad about trading Luka, just not getting what you should have. I would agree there. I mean, they really did not get enough back. That's kind of the problem I think I have the biggest problem with. I don't necessarily mind that they traded Luka as far as there were already rumblings that maybe in a couple years that might have been a possibility. Okay, so be it. I don't like it, but whatever. If you're going to trade him, at least get something of real value back, and they didn't do that. Rafe, I feel like the Cubs are going to way underperform, to be honest. I want to see them do good, but I don't know, gut feeling. I don't think there's any way they way underperform. I think the only way that happens is if they have some injuries on that roster. I think they're going to be good enough defensively to where that pitching staff's going to be able to hold their own. I think they're going to be able to close out more games than they were able to last year because they have a dependable option in Presley back there in the ninth. So I think at worst they're going to be in a good spot. Let's see here. You think they need to add another starter? I think they need to add at least one. Heel, I was looking at the Yankees lineup. They need to do more for their lineup. Looks underwhelming, just being honest. I would agree. I think they need another impact bat. I think their overall team is better. But once they get to October, they're going to miss having that presence in that lineup besides Aaron Judge to take some of the pressure off the other bats in the system. Rafe, Rangers, Mets, Padres, the biggest underdog. That's my order of who I want to win the World Series this year. If the Dodgers are the prohibitive favorite, I guess you'd say all the other teams are underdogs then, I guess, in that mindset there. Rangers are predicted to be the second best team in the American League according to PECOTA. Not that I care about their rankings, but just kind of how the team should generally be viewed. I think they're in a good spot. The Rangers, I really think they are. The question I have is who they're going to get to be their closer this year. That's the one spot I think they really need to address, and bringing in another innings-eating type of starter. Surprised that Jordan Montgomery hasn't been traded yet either. David, welcome in. Hank, welcome back. I know you joined our live just at the very end as we were logging off last night, so I wanted to say thank you for joining us, though. David, if the Cardinals can find a trade for Arenado and chance the Jays could get rid of Springer, is there any chance they could get rid of Springer? No. As far as Springer goes, I don't think he has real value out there on the market. We can pull up his value via the baseball trade values to give you an idea of what he's worth on the market right now, but I don't see anybody really reaching out and saying, hey, I would like to have an aging outfielder who's losing sprint speed, contact rate, power, all those kinds of things. That age is starting to catch up to him. Rafe, just want to touch back on Mavs. Did you see Martin, AD, Christie intro presser today? AD been mentoring Max to the full extent. Max has been really impressive, I will say that. AD had a really good message to the fans, basically saying he understands the pain and frustration the fan base is having, and he's very excited to bring some hope again to the franchise after they traded away their star player. Very good press conference, though, for AD. I thought Max Christie looks very polished, excited to see what they have in him. Rafe, I feel like pitching-wise, we have a lot of mouths to feed, especially if we trade for Monty or someone. We do have a lot of mouths to feed. That's not the problem, though. The problem is we don't have enough guys who can eat enough innings. That's the bigger problem. You're going to have some injuries in that rotation. You can't count on Molly being able to lock up 150 innings this year. Gray might be the one guy you can point to and say, hey, that's the one guy we have that might be able to get you 130 to 150 innings. Andrew Heaney had a really good year last year, and he's still out there on the free agent market. Maybe you go that route as well. But I don't think there's an issue of having too much pitching because the adage in Major League Baseball always goes, you can never have, what? Say it with me, too much started pitching. All right. Hank, the good Rangers, the bad, the A's, and the ugly, the Angels. The A's are actually in a pretty good spot this year. I think they have a chance to break even as far as a team. I think they could get very close to a 500 club with what they've done to that roster. Now, they still need more starting pitching as far as I'm concerned, but that offense should be more than enough, especially in a AAA ballpark. The pitching that they brought in might not be so great because, again, of that AAA ballpark, which is why I have my worries about that rotation, even with the upgrades that they made. But the ugly is still the Angels as far as I'm concerned, as it should be. Angels fans should not be upset by that. The Angels should be going through a rebuild process, and that's just just how it goes sometimes. All right, let's go ahead and head over to X and just see if anything is happening this evening. So the Padres have grabbed a couple of veterans now. Bob Nightingale says the Hayward and Joe signing, they're going to be competing where Profar was last year to take over that left field role. Honestly, it's not a bad platoon there if they decide to keep both of those guys on the active roster. I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to bring in another bat via a trade. So if they make a trade for Dylan Cease, don't be surprised if they add somebody with some control as far as a hitter. I know I floated the idea, about a month ago about Luis Arraez to the Rangers, give them a permanent option at first base that they can utilize. Maybe trade Ezekiel Duran there along with another bat. That would be one way to bring in another piece that could fill that hole for them. Dylan Cease, if they get a decent piece back in return there, maybe he would fill that hole as well. Rafe, baseball in a scary place when the A's are presumably a much improved team. I don't know about that. The A's, for the majority of my youth anyway, were a solid team. Only recently have they really gone through the depths of what they've had to go through. Every now and again, they would try to trade away their star players, and they have a down year. but usually after 1 year, they're right back where they were because of all those young prospects they continually brought in. The most recent batch of prospects the A's have traded for have not worked out one iota. There is no Barry Zito. There is no Mark Mulder. There is no Tim Hudson in this group that's coming. And that's been the problem for the A's, that they might have to do it a little bit differently, which is why they spent on Luis Severino, making the trade for Springs, among other acquisitions as well. I would not be surprised if they actually tried to get an Andrew Heaney or Jose Quintana to kind of wrap up their rotation as well. If the A's can upgrade offensively at some positions, they might be better than the Mariners. I think they're already pretty solid offensively. They could use an upgrade here or there. For instance, an upgrade over Seth Brown would be a nice one for them. There was the possibility that they could have traded Mason Miller to the Phillies in exchange for Alec Boehm if the Phillies had their way, but obviously the value was there for the A's to say, no, go away, because Boehm has nowhere near the value of Miller. But hopefully they can keep him from punching walls more than anything else. And what was it with bullpen guys punching walls last year? Did they not learn that brick wall and hand do not mix? Brock Burke had his tough start to the season and then punctuated it by punching the wall and breaking his hand, missing a month, coming back, and then ultimately being DFA'd and then sent on to the Angels, where he's going to be a middle relief guy at best there for the Angels this year. Might be a guy that's in the minor league system. Mason Miller punched a wall. There's like 4 or 5 guys that missed about a month or 2 of the season because they punched walls. Devin Williams is another name that I remember, not from last year, but from years prior, that punched walls as bullpen guys. Let's stop punching walls. Let's go ahead and put a punching bag in the dugout nowadays for those guys to take out their frustrations on, because, I mean, when are they going to learn? Stop punching cinder block walls. It don't work. Alrighty. Master Vinman, I hope your prediction that Bregman will sign to the Cubs comes true, but I think a 4-year deal won't cut it. The Cubs do have a 6-year deal on the table from what we've heard, with an opt-out after the first year. The money might not be where Bregman wants it, though. That's the issue there. I do believe Toronto has the best contract length and dollar value on the books, but I just don't think he wants to play in Toronto, but we shall see. What happened to Castillo trade? Castillo is not going to be traded by the Mariners. They made a decision that they would rather keep the rotation together than bust it up just to improve their offense. So they're going to try to nickel and dime their lineup a little bit here and there. The one name that might be left for them is Justin Turner. We'll see if they get that one across the board as well. Chris Sale 2 years ago. Yeah, remember that one. I remember that minor league dugout fiasco where he was went ballistic in the minor leagues and kind of set his rehab back and had to go back on the IL or he was already on the IL, but they extended his IL stint because of how he was punching coolers and taking out lights and all that kind of stuff as he was in the minor leagues having that type of a meltdown. Glad I never broke anything punching walls. Yeah, I mean, a cinder block is not going to break with your tiny little knuckle there. Let's see here. Hank would like a Bregman's. I want to like Bregman, so he must leave the AL West for that to happen. If you're a Ranger fan, I can understand that. Astros upped their offer. They did, Master Vinman, but not anything consequential. I think it was more of a token gesture for the Astros saying, hey, Bregman, we are still serious. We really do want you back. But it sounds like the offer was purely nominal. So we're talking like the offer was 6 for 156. Sounds like the offer went up to like 6 for 160, something like that. Kind of a favor to Bregman to get the other teams to up their offers as well. And as of yet, nothing has gone to the level that Bregman is comfortable signing yet. Otherwise, we would already know where he's going. I was trying to wait tonight to see if we could get that Bregman signing, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen tonight. I was really hopeful for it, but hopefully over the weekend we'll get some news there. No one wants to send to the Angels, or no one wants to be sent to the Angels. That's basically a nice way to say retire by other teams, just being honest. Not a bad comparison there, Heel. I like that one. Rafe, I heard the Astros upping their offer doesn't change Bregman's mind, which makes it sound like he knows where he's going, but I'm not going to put it past him to go back. Again, I don't think he knows where he's going yet. I think he has an idea of where he would prefer to play. I think he has an idea of what contract he would prefer, but the two haven't lined up yet for him to sign a deal. Bregman should go back to the Astros. At this point, I'm wondering what the other offer is from the Cubs. I'm wondering what the offer is from Toronto, that he's not comfortable going there, even with that contract offer on the books. Detroit, I know their contract is a short-term offer. How short-term is it, and what kind of AAV does it have? Otherwise, I would agree with you. Bregman should take that guaranteed deal that's been on the table from the Astros since the beginning of the offseason. Rafe, Angels are the baseball version of the Titans. I don't know about that. Titans had more success. I mean, they were number one team in the AFC a couple of years back with Derrick Henry leading the way and Ryan Tannehill. The Angels have not been so lucky. Even with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, they couldn't sniff the postseason, let alone a number one seed. So kind of keep that in mind. I would say the Angels, if you're trying to compare them to an NFL team, Browns made the playoffs more recently. Who's had a really bad playoff drought? Can't even think of one, really. Nobody comes to mind that's to the level of the Angels' ineptitude over the last decade or so. Rafe, it's crazy some teams just doesn't say, here's an extra $15 million, come to us. I mean, an extra $15 million might be nice, but I'm not sure it'd be the difference maker for an Alex Bregman. Now, if it was, say, $5 million over the course of, say, 6 or 7 years, that would put it at a $30 to $35 million up in the offer. Not too bad there. You're saying the Bears as far as their playoff drought, but yeah, you have more hype there though with Caleb Williams. You finally have some hope. Every single year you think you're going to do well, which I guess does fit the description of the Angels. But now you have a long-term solution on your roster. The Angels still don't have that long-term solution on their roster yet. Rafe, recent Titans. Yes, the Titans have been really bad recently. I'll give you that one. That's where Julio and Hopkins and others go to end their careers, but Hopkins just got out. True. I root against every Boris client. That's one way to do it. There's a lot of people who do, so you're not alone in that one. All right. Let's see if there's anything else happening tonight before we kind of wrap up with our rankings part of the show. Update the page here. Nothing there. Okay. One thing, one of you guys was asking about the trade value of Springer. That's what it was. Let me pull up the Blue Jays just so you can see what his value is via trade, since one of you guys was asking about it. Springer, negative 24 value, and he's going to be on the books for another year after this one. $48 million. So, say the Blue Jays wanted to trade him, you'd have to eat roughly $24 million just to break even on a trade, just to get him off of your books. That ain't happening. He's 35 years old. You're stuck with that deal for a couple of years. All right. Let's go ahead and discuss some rankings anyway. As far as like the team, how each one of these teams have done this offseason, just kind of go down the list here. We'll start at the top with the Angels. Angels, I think, have done a little bit of a miss there with Kikuchi. I thought they should have done something differently. But overall, they have avoided the pitfalls of other big contracts. I gave them some hard comments after the Kikuchi signing. I was pretty stern on their interest in Santander and Alonso. As of yet, they have not made another big splash signing. So good on them for not doing so. I like the signing of Moncada. I like the signing of Hendricks and a couple other bullpen guys that are still to come. So I'd give the Angels kind of a C- as far as an offseason because I don't like that Kikuchi signing the most. Healthy playoff DeGrom, come on, yes. Boris is bad for baseball. I don't think so. Remember, he's actually employed by the players. The players are the ones who like having him around. So if you have a problem with Boris and you don't like the way he conducts business, take it up with your favorite player. Master Vinman, as a baseball fan, I wish Trout played for a different team. Me too, man. I wish he was in a different team. I wish he and Ohtani were on the same team in their prime at with a different club because that team just never really built around those two. They tried going the big name offensive piece over and over and over again without getting pitching, and it never worked out. I want Gabriel Moreno. Is he still a Diamondback? He is. We'll see that would be one good name to keep an eye on for future years. If Jonah Heim doesn't work out in Texas, maybe that would be an option there. Rafe, imagine if Trout and Ohtani played together. That's a playoff team right there. Oh, wait. No, it wasn't. Do you think Jonah Heim bounces back? He was an all-star. He was considered an elite catcher that year. He was. I do think he'll respond quite well to having a full offseason to recover. He's been really overworked with the Texas Rangers. I think that's part of it. As far as his issues, how much will he bounce back is the bigger question. Is he still going to be below league average? I think there's a good chance that happens, better than most Rangers fans would like to admit. Because before his all-star year, he wasn't seen as a positive offensive piece. So kind of keep that in mind for your expectations for what a positive year for Jonah Heim looks like. It's a below-average hitter with good glove skills behind the plate. Higashioka is going to be the power guy along with Heim at the plate, and hopefully he gets back on track offensively, maybe even to the all-star level. That'd be great. But I'm not expecting that type of bounce back as well. It's a shame that Interpreter Guy probably ruined their relationship too. Remember the Trout and Dodger rumors? I do. All right, let's kind of go down the list here. Astros, how did their offseason go? I'd give it an I for incomplete because I still think they need to add another outfielder there. And if Bregman is a legitimate possibility to go back there, that would move one of their infielders to the outfield and solve that need for a hitter out there. If they don't bring in Bregman, I think they still need to add one more hitter, whether it be an Alex Verdugo or somebody along those lines, somebody to help out in that outfield there. Can't handle their all-star on the Dodgers. They're not getting Trout. Trout is untradeable. Athletics, I think they've had a really good offseason. I would give them an A for the offseason is what they've done. It could be better. That's why I'm not giving them an A+. I think they could add some more pitching. But for me, they've done a nice job raising the floor of their team. I think they're a very respectable team with what they've done as far as that starting rotation. But is there more work to do? Without question. But it's something to go from a team that was not expected to win anything the last couple of years now to finally being respectable. So just changing the narrative around the team works a lot better for you. We'll see how their long-term plans look as far as finding a home. But as far as their offseason goes, it worked out really well, I would say. So are they going to win the division? No. Are they going to win a wild card spot? No. Are they going to be in contention for a wild card spot? Maybe until August, but not in September. And that's a win for a year for the A's, as far as I'm concerned. That's progress. That's what you expect to see out of teams that go through a full rebuild process. And theirs did not go swimmingly this time, as opposed to most of the other ones that they've gone through. A little bit tougher this time around. It looks like they might finally be getting out on the other side of it. Blue Jays, as far as their offseason, I'll give it an incomplete as well, but it's probably going to be a D. The biggest reason being because they didn't bring back, they didn't get the extension done with Vlad Guerrero. That's the instant no, we're not passing this person. So I'd give this one a D. The only reason I'm not giving it an F is because they added at least one respectable piece here in Santander for the long term. Scherzer does nothing for me for just one season. I think he helps them out as far as getting closer to a playoff spot this year, but I think it does nothing for the long-term ability to be able to keep Vlad Guerrero as well. If they want Leote, that's cool. I mean, I would like to see Leote move on, but that would mean Evan Carter's doing really well. That's the main reason why I would want to see Leote go out. It won't happen now, but a few years ago it was talked about daily for months. Yes, it was. Spring training countdown starts after the Super Bowl. Honestly, it's already starting for me. All right, so let's go to the Braves. I'd give this one a C-. I don't really like what the Braves have done outside of Jurickson Profar. I think they missed the opportunity to bring in another starter to that rotation, like a Max Scherzer. They still could bring in Andrew Heaney. And for that, I'll give them a slight pass on that one until they add another starter. But for me, it sounds like they're going to go with Holmes and Anderson as the back of the lineup there. And, I just think that they're back of the rotation there. I think they could have done better. I like the addition of Profar, don't get me wrong. But there's ways that they could have improved this roster and offloaded a little bit of salary here and there to allow them to maintain another high-quality starter in that rotation instead of going with two unproven guys. Even though they have high hopes for them, you don't want to go into the year counting on those two guys to be major guys in your rotation going forward, because then your depth is absolutely sunk. You don't have much depth left there, and I would like to see them add at least a couple of starters that could, or at least bullpen guys who could be, spot starters for them. Think of guys like Jose Urena, Jacob Junis anyway, players like that is who I would be looking for. The Brewers, I would say this has been a B+ of an offseason. I love the trade that they made, Devin Williams, getting a prospect back, and Nestor Cortez helping out that rotation. I still think there's more work to do there. I think they could add another starting pitcher. They're still very thin there. They're counting on 3 guys in that rotation that I don't think necessarily need to be counted on as many innings as they're hoping for out of those guys. That's why I floated the idea of a John Gray trade there about a month ago. I still think that's the best course of action for them, is to add another starter. Don't be surprised if they look at a Quintana. They have talked to him before about a contract around the winter meetings, so maybe they revisit that idea there. The Cardinals, we'll do this one here and then catch up with these comments anyway. The Cardinals, I think it's still an incomplete, but I think once they get this Arenado deal done, based off of what we're hearing, what the return probably is going to be, I'm going to give them a C- as well. I don't think they were going to add anybody. The biggest problem I have with their offseason, one, is that it's taken so long to trade Arenado. There's other priorities on this team other than moving on from Arenado. Second, the biggest piece that they had to move was Ryan Helsley, and they haven't done that yet, and it doesn't look like they're going to, at least before spring training. Maybe they'll surprise us and trade both of them before we get to the spring training season, but I think Helsley's going to start the season with the Cardinals, and I think that's a miss as an organization. With the price of relief pitching being so high, you're telling me you can find a good offer out there, especially when Helsley has injury risks and up and down years in the final year of his deal. You don't maximize on the value there, and one other benefit of trading him away, now you let a young guy take over in that closer spot there and get some experience. Go with the youth movement. That's what the whole purpose of this year is supposed to be anyway. So why are we holding on to a veteran like this? And then at the trade deadline, I would like to see them try to move on from some of their starting pitchers. I know they were kind to their starters and said, hey, Sonny, you want to go ahead and be traded in this offseason to see if you want to move on to a team that might be competing for a division crown? He said, no, I don't really want to, thanks, and so they decided to hold on to him. I imagine they'll revisit those same conversations at the trade deadline. Thanks, Max, forever, but bye. I would agree there. I think Max Scherzer still has one more good year in the tank, and I hope him all the best there in Toronto. Rafe, I want your bold prediction for biggest name dealt at the trade deadline. Vlad Guerrero Jr. I really do think he's not going to get the extension. I think Toronto's going to see the writing on the wall and realize the error of their ways and trade him. So I think that's going to be the biggest name traded. Now, if you're looking for a guy that's going to be under control for years and years and years to come, I'll go with the starting pitchers. Sandy Alcantara, I think, will be traded at the deadline. Pablo Lopez, I think, will be traded at the deadline as well, or at least darn close to it. I have more faith that Alcantara will be, so I'll go ahead and say him as the biggest piece that might get moved at the deadline. Get me my WWE cards tomorrow. Yeah, I remember those were coming out. Let's see, Heel. I'd give the Astros at least an A. It was smart to be an A+ if they signed a good outfielder or Bregman back. As for the Rangers, I'd give them an A+, and this may be biased, but they can take LA to 7. Well, we'll see what my grade is here in just a moment. Heel, my hot take for the year is Wyatt Langford will finish top 5 in AL MVP voting. I told you guys my hot take as far as Wyatt Langford. I think he's going to finish tied with Corey Seager, maybe even past Corey Seager as the best player on the team. That's my bold take there. And if he's that good, and Seager has a good year, and he's still better than that, he could very well finish in the top 5 of AL MVP. I wouldn't be surprised if he finished in top 3 or top 2 if he was that good, and they played that well. Rafe, since I'm a Texans fan, I hear from Astros fans frequently, and I got to say, as much as I don't like the Dodgers, I'd rather see them beat the Astros in 4 than in the World Series than the Astros win. I get it. Fan bases can be a little bit brutal from time to time. Hank, Yankees and Dodgers retain top spots entering opening day, theoretically. I would agree. Rafe, I don't even acknowledge the abomination Houston. Go back to the NL. I will say, I did cheer for the Astros when they were on the National League side of things. But this whole era with Carlos Correa, George Springer, etc., that was a tough era to watch. They're a lot more watchable now than they ever have been with that group of players. So I'm enjoying them play a little bit more than I ever have. Let's see here. Dylan Cruz, Rookie of the Year over Roki. I wouldn't say that's too bold because I think that rotation is going to be prolific there in LA. So they're going to take their time with Roki. Whereas the Nationals, if Dylan Cruz is ready, he's going to have all the runway he could want at the major league level to iron out his issues. And so he has a good shot to win the NL Rookie of the Year. Rafe, what team do you think, if season goes as good or better than expected, would be most aggressive at the trade deadline? Most aggressive, I would probably say the Yankees or Mets. Let's see here, Rafe. Hey, I don't like any of the Houston teams besides the Texans. And every other sport is Dallas team. Okay. Altuve is a delight, I must say. Altuve's pretty cool. I mean, I don't really have a problem with him as far as the jersey thing, like when he took it off and was trying to show off, or like when he had faced all the questions about, he had a little sensor on him to tell him what the pitch was, etc. Didn't buy any of that stuff. So Altuve's been all right. He was there for the tough years of Houston anyway, before that crew actually got there. All right, let's keep going down the list here. Chicago Cubs. I think, again, this is an incomplete. If they get Bregman, I think it's an A offseason for them. I would give them a solid A if they get Bregman. Dylan Cease, I think, would make it an A+ if they get both of those guys. If they miss on Bregman, I think this is probably a C- for them, because I would say they're stuck in the middle here. They've sacrificed their future a little bit to a certain degree and only brought in one guy to make a difference offensively. Now, the move for Presley, I think, was a good one, and that's why I think it's a C instead of a D for me. But if they get Bregman, automatic A as far as I'm concerned. Let's see here. Diamondbacks, I'd give their offseason probably an A as well. I like the acquisition of Naylor as a response anyway to losing Christian Walker. I still think they need to move on from Jordan Montgomery. The acquisition of Corbin Burns is very useful, helps them out for the rotation for 26 as well. And I'm curious to see what this team looks like, how they stack up in that division. The Dodgers are the prohibitive favorites, but if that rotation is as good as advertised, that Diamondback team might be able to hold their own in that same division there. So I like what they've done. I still think they need another bullpen arm, but we'll see where they go. Dodgers, A+, A++, whatever you want to say. It's an easy A. I mean, what can we say? I mean, that rotation looks prolific. The lineup looks darn good. Bullpen looks fantastic. They got all the prospects in the world and all the money that they could ever want. I mean, what can you say? They're the Dodgers. Great offseason for them. Giants, I would give this one a... If I was grading it strictly on the talent that they brought in, probably a B. But I'm going to give them an A for one reason, is that they've changed the narrative around the organization. They changed it from how they weren't able to get the big fish, they couldn't get their target, to where now they get in Willie Adames before they even get to the winter meetings at a contract that they're comfortable with. Then they get a veteran guy to give them some stability in that rotation, but also some credibility in that front office. So good on Buster Posey for turning the page from that Farhan Zaidi era. Let's see here. What team do you think is season better than most aggressive deadline? Yes, yes, yes. Rockies are the 26, 27, 28, 29 World Series winners. No, they're not. Twins got Mike Ford, so that has been an A+ off season. I don't think so. I get the tongue-in-cheek part of that, but I mean the Twins, they've had a tough offseason from an ownership standpoint. They haven't been able to make any real additions to this roster, and I think they're going to pare this thing down around the trade deadline. I think they're the fourth best team in that division at best. If the Rockies beat us, I would not hate them like you do. So, like you do St. Louis, like I do St. Louis. Okay, I will say I do like the Rockies. I mean, one of my first actual jackets I ever wore as a kid was a Rockies jacket when we went there for, I think it was hot air balloons when I was a very, very small kid, like 1 or 2 years old. I have vague memories of going up anyway at that age, and I think I was making hamburgers at that age. They were taking pictures of me making hamburgers that young. But anyway, the Rockies have always had a soft place in my heart. But, I mean, they're just a tough team to have any hope for. They're not going to be a good team. Their rotation is always terrible. Their bullpen doesn't have any hope. Their lineup is awful. There's really nothing to really look forward to outside of the young guy that got traded from the Guardians, Nolan Jones. Other than that, there's not much to really hope for there in Colorado. You had a Rockies ball cap their first year. Cool, cool. Alrighty, let's see if we can continue down this list here. Guardians, I'd give them a solid B as an offseason. I like the acquisitions that they've made so far, but I think they were looking to bring in a bigger fish, like a Kyle Tucker via trade. They don't get that done. They trade away Naylor. They bring in Carlos Santana. I like what they've done. They got off the Chris Jimenez deal. That's an A++ deal. Absolutely great wizardry on that one. But that's not what we came into the offseason expecting from the Guardians. This was more of the same from the Guardians. Trading guys that are getting close to free agency, or trading guys that are on bad deals, in advantageous deals, and getting future assets, all that kind of thing. It was just the same old Guardians offseason, which is why I can only give it a B. Mariners, I'm giving them a C-. They still have that rotation intact, is the only reason why it's still a passing grade. But they need to improve that offense. And until they do, I don't think they're going to sniff the wild card. I don't think they have a prayer for the division. I think one of the two teams, at worst, is going to run away with this division. More likely, both of those two teams are going to be better. The two teams I reference here, the Astros and Rangers, are going to be better than the Mariners as far as record, because that offense isn't going to be able to do enough. And we'll see what they do next offseason, because that's when they'll have some money coming off the books with Mitch Haniger and Garver's contracts coming off the books there. Marlins, I'm going to go ahead and give them an F of an offseason. I don't like the trade that they made for Jesus Luzardo. I don't like some of the news that we're getting out from them, but I do like that they actually have a plan for their next era of contention. That's why they want in trade guys that are very young, 16 to 20-year-old guys as far as prospects. They don't want your guy that's already established himself at the major league level. They don't want your guy that's about to break into the major leagues. They don't want your 21, 22, 23-year-old prospects. So they've at least chosen a direction. So it's not a 0 grade for the Marlins, but it's certainly an F. I don't like what they've done, and that's been a continuing issue for them as well. Hot take, Skeens getting traded in the 27 offseason? No. Earliest I would see Skeens getting traded is about 2 years before his free agency. I think that's going to be round 27, maybe 28 offseason, somewhere in there. I don't believe I just wanted to stir the pot. I mean, I think the hope there is for Pirates fans that they'll be able to extend him on a deal. If they aren't able to get that extension done, I think they will trade him at that point. Let's keep going down the list here. Mets, I'd give them an A for an offseason for all the acquisitions that they brought in. Juan Soto alone, great piece there, getting the deal done with Pete Alonso. I would have liked for them to add another number one starter to that rotation. That would have put this offseason for them over the top. I'm giving out a lot of A's here, but I like what the Mets did overall. Now, I still think they'll need to add a number one to that rotation. I think they will do so at some point during the year. So, could it get better? Yes, but I like what they've done so far. Let's see here. Nationals, I like the trade that they made for Nathaniel Lowe. A little bit of a question mark, though, as far as, not saving their powder, for another piece next year. But Lowe doesn't cost a whole lot of money there. They weren't expected to spend a whole lot of money this offseason. So for me, this Nationals team, I'll give them a solid, B-, just because they didn't have to do much this offseason. I like the addition of Nathaniel Lowe, though. Trading Robert Garcia, though, was a little bit of a hurt to that bullpen there. But they have some depth in that bullpen, and, it's a bullpen piece. Those guys, if they aren't a guy like Emmanuel Clase or Mariano Rivera or an Andrew Miller or a Josh Hader, most of those guys are fairly interchangeable because, again, bullpens are mercurial. 1 year they're great, 1 year they're bad, and you just have to hope 1 year is going to be better than the other. So Robert Garcia is going to be a long-term piece for the Rangers in that bullpen. We'll see if he can establish himself on that level with the guys I just named, or if he's just one of those bullpen guys that has a good year 1 year and a bad year the next. Hank, does Lowe have a Gold Glove and a Silver Slugger? He looks good on paper. He does have a Silver Slugger. I can't remember if he got a Gold Glove or not, though. I do think he gets traded when he has 2 years before free agency. I would agree with you there, Rafe. Let's see here. Garcia could be a stud for us, but sounds too good to be true. I do think Garcia is going to be very good in the bullpen. I don't think they'll give him run at closer. I don't think they're going to try him at closer, except if, say, the closer's gone 3 days and 4 nights and they need to give him a night off. That would be when I expect the Rangers might use him as a closer. He's been in that role, that type of role before. Now, as far as a straight-up closer where he's closing every single game that he's needed to, I don't think he'll ever be that for the Rangers, at least not this season. He might develop into that out of need, but as far as this year, I think they have some options on the free agent market that they're going to try. They have some options in-house like Josh Spores and Mark Church that they'll try before they use Robert Garcia in that role. All right, let's keep going down the list here. Orioles, their offseason. This is a tough one to grade because their biggest issue is still their biggest issue, and that's their rotation. I know you're not going to like this, Orioles fans. I'm going to give this one a solid D. They've helped out that rotation. They're a better rotation than they were at the beginning of the offseason when Burns was a free agent. But they have no number one, and until they add another number one, add a single number one to that rotation, this is not a team that's going to get out of the first round of the postseason. Even as currently constructed, with all the additions that they made to that outfield mix, bringing in O'Neill to kind of save money to bring in a starter, I still think they'll bring in a starter at some point. But the way they've done things so far this offseason, you have to give them a D. I like the additions that they made in that rotation as far as depth, but it's not about depth for the Orioles. It's about getting over the top in the playoffs. The issue is not the 162 for the Orioles. They've been just fine in the regular season. The issue has been when they get to October, they're just not good enough to get over the hump. And the additions they made this offseason do not speak to a confidence that they would be better in those situations. So, for those of you that are Orioles fans, let me give you the silver lining. The offseason's not over. Spring training hasn't begun yet. We're still before the trade deadline. I think before the trade deadline is when they will add a starting pitcher. That's when their whole offseason really will change for them, because I think they'll be in the market for a Sandy Alcantara, for a Pablo Lopez. Those are the names I think they should be targeting, and we'll see if they can get that deal done. I'd really rather them not go after the one-year guys, the rentals, the Kings of the world, who they've been connected with over the past week, as well as Dylan Cease. I'd really rather them go after a long-term option there. So until they get that starting pitcher, it's a D compared to everything else they've done. They lose Santander, they bring in O'Neill. Okay, it at least helps save you a little bit of money in that outfield and replace Santander to a degree, but it's still a downgrade in that outfield, and you haven't upgraded that rotation. I understand Burns was starting to have diminishing returns as far as what he's able to do on the field anyway, as far as a pitcher, but he was still your number one, and you have nobody even in that category Sure, you have some guys who might be able to do it for a day, but you're not counting on them to rise to the occasion in the postseason and be able to do it. I know they have some hope for a guy like Grayson Rodriguez or a Bradish or a Sugano maybe elevating to a number one. I have zero faith in any of that happening. I think at best all those guys are number two. Grayson Rodriguez, I think the ship has sailed on him being an ace. I think on his best day, he's probably a really good number three, a low-end number two in somebody's rotation. So sorry, Orioles fans, it's a D for me. Let's see here. April 4th through the 9th, Rangers at Cubs. I'll post pics for all your Rangers fans. That would be cool. I actually remember I had a friend in Seattle anyway when I had Spencer Patton was one of my favorite Rangers bullpen arms at the time, and she didn't even realize who he was. And whenever she sent me pictures, because she went to the game because she lived in Seattle, and she actually took pictures of him warming up in the bullpen. I was like, that's super cool. How did you know he was my favorite arm in the bullpen for the Rangers this year? And she's like, who's Spencer Patton? The guy warming up in the picture you took. Because they have that bullpen where you can actually get right behind the bullpen with a glass there, and you're basically eye to eye with the bullpen guys there. Really cool seats if you ever get to go to Seattle and do that kind of a thing. But that'd be really cool to see there. Mr. Vinman, that'd be really cool. Hank, best low I have is a Bowman first base auto PSA 9, not valuable. Yeah, but it's still Nathaniel Lowe. I'd still like that card myself. Wrigley, I want to go someday. I drove by Wrigley. I had tickets to go to the game. Kind of doing my cross-country trek, 7, 8 years ago. I say cross-country. I drove up to South Dakota from Texas to see family, and I want to go through some other cities that I hadn't been to before, and Chicago was one of those. Had deep dish pizza and all that kind of thing for the first time there. Went and saw the Bean. I was only going to be in Chicago for like 10 hours that day because I wanted to get back on the road and keep on going. And I had tickets for the game, and I pull up to Wrigley, and I'm just driving around, just all the craziness that's going on down there, and I'm like, I just don't have the energy, so I just passed on going to the game. It's not often you get a chance to go to Wrigley, but I was just so tired I could barely keep my eyes open for the road, so I decided it wasn't the best choice to go ahead and go to a game at that time, especially if I had several hours of driving to do ahead of that. So, wish I'd been able to. Wish I had stayed there though and just taken the hit and gotten a hotel that night. But maybe someday I'll get to see a game there at Wrigley. Fenway is on your bucket list. It is mine as well. Rafe, I used to be a D-backs fan. Then we played them in the World Series, and hatred brewed. I mean, I still like the D-backs even after facing them in the World Series. I mean, we got the better of them after all. I've only been to one park, a AAA Richmond Braves stadium. Okay. Rafe, I got to play at Old Rangers Field a long time ago and went to a Rough Riders game. That's the only time I've been to pro stadiums. I snuck onto the when the Rangers allow them to sneak the kids to run the bases. Anyway, I actually snuck onto the field at that time and basically pretended like I was with this family that was going on there with their kid, and I ran the bases with them just because I wanted to be able to say I ran the bases at the ballpark in Arlington. So that was a really cool experience. 19 MLB parks, but include stadiums that are no longer. Okay. Let's see here, big over here. That's cool, man. Keep it up. All right. Hank, I like 9s because it's mainly for your personal collection. The card is fine and protected and reasonably priced. That's a smart decision for your personal collection. Who cares what the grade is as long as you like the card. Rafe, I'm not a big social person, so I should stay away from going to games. I'm not a huge social person. This is about my entire social battery right here. I go back to work tomorrow. My social battery is going to be this right here. I think the Giants, especially if they have an aggressive trade deadline, could win the World Series. I just think they're too far away. They have too many needs. They need some great years out of the guys that they already have, absolutely. But they need an outfielder, so that means maybe Kyle Tucker becomes available at the deadline, you make a trade for him. Vlad Guerrero becomes available, you make a trade for him. Even if you make both of those acquisitions, I still don't think you're a favorite to get the World Series or even get to the championship or to the NLCS with that lineup as currently constructed. They need more talent on that roster overall, absolutely. I just think they're a little too far away to get there. I do get the reason for optimism there with the Giants, but I still think even with the additions that they've made, that they're just outside of the wild card picture. With an addition, maybe they're in the wild card. With 2 additions, maybe they get closer to the top of the wild card, but I don't think they threaten the Dodgers at all. Let's see here. Cool family let you. Yeah, I don't think they even noticed I was right behind them because I kind of was trying to not make eye contact with the security guard that was holding open the gate for everybody, and the family was right in front, and I kind of looked like them as well. So I guess I kind of blended in. Of course, at that time I was probably I don't know, 24, 25, somewhere in there. So that was still kind of cool back then, though. Rafe, I was in a summer league and we got to play for like 6 hours at Globe Life. That's awesome. That would have been a great day. Or sorry, that this Ranger summer camp, I don't remember what it was actually called. Yes, I did see Trey Mancini did get signed with the Diamondbacks on a minor league deal. Solid move, I would agree there. Gives them some insurance for Josh Naylor, and if Trey Mancini can hold up, maybe you'd have a bat that you can use off of the bench there. I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to be ground shaking for them, but it does give them some additional depth there. So don't call it a comeback yet, but it's a comeback. All right, let's keep going down our list here before we wrap up for the evening. Padres, I'm going to give them an incomplete because they've really done nothing this offseason. Outside of today, they've really only made a couple of moves, bringing in Connor Joe and Jason Hayward. Small moves, but I think their biggest acquisitions are going to come via trade when they trade Luis Ariz or one of their starting pitchers, King or Cease. So again, incomplete. But if I had to judge them based off of what they've done so far, they've really done nothing. So I'd give them, a D, I guess. But for me, they've really been the one team that hasn't done anything along with the Twins. That's why they get an incomplete from me. Phillies, I'm going to give them an F. I do not like what they've done so far this offseason. I thought they should have shaken it up, and they didn't. Their biggest signing that they made that I like was Max Kepler. I do not like the trade of Jesus Luzardo. I said so at the time. I thought they should have shaken this roster up, and they didn't really do so. I understand they had some issues financially, but figure it out, man. You're the Philadelphia Phillies. You have Dave Dombrowski, one of the most aggressive general managers in the history of baseball, and your answer is Jesus Luzardo and Max Kepler? Please. Now, the biggest improvement's going to come from Trey Turner just being a better player, but for me, the Phillies have had an F of an offseason so far. Pittsburgh Pirates, I'll go ahead and give them a B-. We'll upgrade it to a B. They've made some decent additions to that lineup. Nothing ground-shaking or earth-shattering. I thought they should have gone after a player like a Nathaniel Lowe. That would have made it probably an A offseason for me, just because I think he profiles as a better offensive piece than what they've done so far there in Pittsburgh. But they have some good pitching. They need to add some hitting while their pitching is inexpensive, and they didn't really do that this year. I like the piece in Horowitz that they brought in, but ultimately, I think there's more meat that they left on the bone this offseason than anything else. And we'll see what they do this season. Maybe they trade one of their young starters. Maybe they trade some of their minor league starters as well to bring in a bat. That's an option, but as of right now, I'd say their offseason kind of been a mixed bag. But we'll see how they do in the regular season. Rangers, this is a tough one for me. I'm going to give them an A-. The only reason is because they haven't added a bona fide closer yet. I don't care if they bring back a Kirby Yates level closer. I want somebody. So one of the articles I saw today about them looking for closers, they speculated Kendall Graveman, who's been great when he's healthy, but the issue is the health. I think he could be had for a low-cost deal here, something like what they got Kirby Yates for last year. And I think he'd be a good option until some of the other guys are healthy or one of their younger guys ultimately seizes the role. If Graveman is lights out like he usually is when he's healthy, then great, you leave him there. But that's one possibility. Kyle Finnegan, Kenley Jansen are still out there. Trade for Helsley or Duran remain a possibility as well. And then they haven't added another innings-eating type of starter there. I think they'll still add some depth there before we get to the spring training. But those are the two spots that I'm seeing for the Rangers that they haven't quite addressed. They've done a great job addressing all their other needs, but I still think there's more work to do. For the Rays, I'm going to give them... I'll give them a B because they're the Rays. They always figure out how to make these small trades work for them, and I like the signing of Kim for them, giving them some depth, but I don't think they've done anything to really change their standing in that division. I think they're probably the fourth best team in that division pretty comfortably right now, and they haven't done anything to really change that. A lot's going to depend on the health of a lot of their players coming back from injury. Red Sox, I'm going to give them a B+, because they still haven't addressed their lineup yet enough for me. They've done a nice job addressing that rotation, quite a nice job there. I like the additions to their bullpen, but it's incomplete in that lineup, which is why it's a B+. Bring in Bregman, bring in an Arenado, then it probably goes to an A- or an A, depending on who you bring in. But still kind of some work to do there in Boston. For the Reds, I like what they've done. I'd give it probably a B+ there for them. I think there's still more meat on the bone for them to try to add to this roster, but I like what they've done. I like the additions that they've made, Gavin Lux as well. They miss on some of the big guys that they were targeting, of course, but the rotation still needs a little bit more length in that rotation, which is why it's not an A for me. Last one before we catch up on some of these comments here. The Rockies, I'm just going to give them an F because, again, they're the Rockies. They haven't gotten any positive momentum going. I don't like the decision for them to cut Brendan Rodgers. I mean, at a certain point, either you invest in your the pieces in your draft and keep them in there, even if they're struggling, and allow them to grow from their mistakes, or you don't. And they chose to cut bait with Rodgers. I guess they didn't like how well he was progressing, whatever the case may be. Why are you cutting him? I mean, are you bringing in a depth piece, a journeyman guy to take over his role, which is what it looks like they're going to do, or did anyway. But the Rockies just aren't a great team. All right, let's check out some of these comments here. So just try to catch up on these. Let you guess. Sorry, the Rangers summer camp. Mancini, yes. Sucks because I was only like 8 or 9 and don't remember it too, but much better. Got a certificate for it and everything. What a day, man. I would imagine so, getting on the field. If you look at Max Kepler, he's so average and inconsistent. That's kind of my issue for him. I think he has the ability to be a better player, but he's never shown it consistently enough, which is why it's a decent addition to their outfield mix to at least give Castellanos some time off of his feet. And I like the addition of Kepler for that reason alone. I think that's going to help out Castellanos be a little bit more productive and have more energy going down the stretch. But other than that, I don't like what they've done top to bottom. Rafe, give me that Helsley trade. No kidding. The Rangers still need a closer. If you're the Rangers, would you trade like 3 or 4 players for Mason Miller to close? We tried to do one of those trades, actually. I would do it, but the Rangers don't have the assets, really, that I'd be willing to give up for that type of a trade. To be able to get there, you'd probably have to include Walcott, and I ain't touching him. Let's see here. Brendan Rodgers would fit perfectly in Oakland. I think he'd fit perfectly out there with the Angels, honestly. Trade Rengifo and bring in Brandon Rodgers. Mike could maybe put together a reasonable theory trade. We could do that here in just a minute. Give me that Helsley to the Rangers breaking, followed by an immediate 4-year extension. That'd be awesome, but again, I would be worried about the extension because, again, he's had injury issues in the past and also had poor performance in the past as well, so I'd want to see how he adapts to playing in Texas before I give him that extension there. All right, let's try to finish up these teams here the rest of the way and then kind of wrap up for the evening. Got a long day at work tomorrow, first day back this week anyway. I'll be manning the ship solo tomorrow, so I got to get some rest. All right, we left off with the Rockies to the Royals. I like the addition of India. I know they signed another player. I'm blanking on who the other player was that they just got. Was it Estevez? I think it was Estevez for their bullpen. I like the addition of India. I think it's probably a B-plus move with that one alone. Gets them back to what they were best at with the teams in the 2015, 2016, 2017 range. The teams that got to the World Series, they were focused on pitching, defense, speed, and contact rate. India does really good as far as that speed, contact rate, all that kind of thing. And I think he really helps get them back to their identity there. So I think that trade there was more about getting their identity back that made them so successful. So I like the addition there. I give them a B+. Tigers, still a bit of an incomplete if they bring in Bregman. But let's assume they don't bring in Bregman, what their offseason looks like. I'll give them bringing in Flaherty, Cobb, who is the second baseman, Gleyber Torres as well. I'll give them a B+. I like the additions to that rotation, bringing back Flaherty, but they're missing that lineup piece that pushes them over the top in that division. I still think they're in the mix with all 3 of those teams at the top of the AL Central, with the Guardians, the Tigers, and the Royals. I think the Twins are easily 4th, the White Sox are easily 5th, but I don't think the Tigers have done anything yet this offseason that elevates them above either of the other 2 teams I just mentioned. So bringing in a Bregman would certainly change that conversation a little bit, so we'll see if they get that one done. If they bring in Bregman, then it's probably an A offseason. Not an A-, not an A+, but a solid A. The Twins, I'm going to give them an F. They haven't traded the pieces that I would expect them to trade. They're stuck with Vazquez's contract when I thought there was an opportunity to trade it a couple of months ago. They're holding on to Duran. They're holding on to Lopez. No real urgency to move either of those pieces. They're under control. But I would expect both of those names to get significant traction at the trade deadline. Now, as far as the other pieces on this roster, I'm surprised they haven't discussed Carlos Correa more. I'm surprised they haven't tried to move on from Willie Castro or trade anything that's not nailed down and enter a rebuild phase. I don't see this team being competitive this year as far as winning a division or getting close to a wild card. I'm sure they'll play tough. I'm sure their rotation will be pretty solid. I'm sure their bullpen will be nice. But that lineup, there's not much left in there. The signing that they made the other day with Harrison Bader, I believe, was the guy they brought in, might make Byron Buxton available via trade if they eat some of that value as well. Think of him and Luis Robert in kind of that same vein. And speaking of the Twins and the White Sox, let's do the White Sox here. Twins, I gave an F because of their inability to make decisions here. White Sox, I like the addition of Will Venable as a manager. But this is a team that was, what, a 40-game winner last year? I mean, it couldn't have gotten much worse. They're not going to get much prospects or much value in the free agent market. So I like them at least recognizing now is not the time to add major league talent around the roster. So good on them for not doing that. So I'll give them a C. It's a passing grade, but they've really done nothing to earn it. We'll have to see how it really helps them bringing in Will Venable and just progression from their young guys. Last is the New York Yankees. I like what they've done so far. They miss on Soto, obviously, big hole in that lineup now. I like the additions that they made to the bullpen with Devin Williams being back there. They have Weaver in that 8th inning role. I still think they could use one more bullpen piece. They still need a second baseman or a third baseman, depending on how they deploy this lineup. I like the addition of Goldschmidt. I think he's a little bit past his prime, but there were other options I would have preferred, like a Christian Walker. I like the addition of Bellinger, but again, they still need another impact bat for me. So, I say that to say that the Yankees, for me, have had an A-minus offseason. I love what they've done with Fried. I think their rotation is legitimate, but I think that as far as where they were before, they certainly did a nice job recuperating from the loss of Juan Soto. I just wonder how they perform in October, and that's how this season will be judged. Not by how they finish during the regular season or if they win the division, but if they get to the World Series and ultimately beat the Los Angeles Dodgers or whoever makes it from the NL side. All right, let's try to wrap up for the evening here. Catch up on some of your comments. You want a catcher, just want Moreno. That's my first patch. I can understand then if I'm the Rangers. Sean, where do you work at and what would you do and when does Bregman sign? I do glasses and stuff like that, so I run a glasses store, so I make them, sell them, all that kind of stuff. When does Bregman sign? Well, I've been saying pretty much this entire time, any day now. The market is crystal clear. The question is, how much more does Bregman really want? And does he convince one of these teams to finally bend with the pressure of spring training starting? I think as we get closer to spring training, the pressure to sign a deal is going to mount, and I think he will sign here in the next week. Let's see here. We already got Hyman Higgy. We are good. I will say that the catching in situation there in Texas has improved, but it's a big year for Jonah Heim. He could very well be non-tendered by the Rangers if he has another year just like last year. I hope it doesn't happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, but we shall see. Woo-wee, anyway, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us once again. What do you think about Yohan Moncada signing with the Angels? Good for depth? I think it's great. Because if it works out, it's a one-year, $5 million deal, and you can trade him away at the deadline and get more assets back. I love those small contracts for teams that are going through a rebuild process. That's why I don't see the sense in signing a guy like Kikuchi. I would have rather gone out there and signed another, 3 or 4 guys for around $4 million a year and said, hey, if 2 of these guys have a great year and are sub-4 ERAs, I could trade them at the deadline for something of future value. That's what I would have rather done than what they did with Kikuchi there. Understandably, the team wants some respectability. Artie Moreno wants some respectability after how the Dodgers go out there and just claim supremacy in baseball and look like they've done so for years to come. Moreno is the future. He is very good. I will say that. Yohan is supposed to start at third. Yes, he is. I believe Bochy will see this. I think he sees the writing on the wall with Jonah Heim, that they needed to take him off his feet a little bit. So I think this is all about how Jonah Heim responds this year. If he doesn't respond well offensively, they might make a decision before they even get to the regular season to non-tender him and just trade him away to a team that is looking for some type of an upgrade and hope that Jonah Heim recaptures what he had before. But catching is going to be a big issue for the Rangers if they don't get Jonah Heim turned around. He's got competition for playing time. He does. We don't need a future. We need a presence. We are World Series contenders. What are you talking about? I'll agree with you on that one, Heel, as far as that they need players for today. They don't necessarily need to worry about the future, but I will say if Jonah Heim doesn't work, you have to be thinking 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. What's your option to replace him if Jonah Heim doesn't work? You can't just say Jonah Heim doesn't work. Oh, well, what are our options at that point? You already need to have a plan. So I would expect there are plans in place for contingencies all over the diamond, just like that one. Fried, Yankees are good. I would agree. I do like Boone there for him. I thought he was I thought he wasn't so good in the beginning when he was with the Yankees, but I think he's really embraced that managing role there in the Yankees. Not everybody can handle that market, and he does it pretty well. Rafe, glasses as in readers or shades or both. Prescription, like these. Glasses, readers, bifocals, all kinds of stuff. The only thing I don't do is contacts, and I used to do those, but we don't sell those. Anyway, are the Cubs still the favorites? For Bregman, I would say so. Wine glasses, no. Just is Kyle Hendricks a trade piece as well? If he's, I mean, he's signed with the Angels. If he's having a good year, maybe he could be had again. Hank, I'd like us to wait. What did I miss? Bro, you always say my name, woo woo. It's woo wee. I know, I always get it mixed up. I apologize, my friend. Sean, are the Cubs favorites for Bregman? I would believe so. I think that's my guess as far as where he goes. I think they have the best offer on the table, and they're in a market that I think he's comfortable playing in, whereas Toronto probably has the best contract on the table. I just don't think he wants to go there. Let's see here. Hank, I thought so taking so long. At this, I have concerns. What is taking so long? As far as Bregman, I think I think it's more about Bregman just not being comfortable with the overall money in the contracts or the length from some of the other teams. I'm sure that the money is there from the Tigers as far as an AAV, but as far as the length of the deal, I'm sure it's short. Meanwhile, the Cubs have the length, but not necessarily the money. I think Toronto's got both, but he doesn't want to play in Toronto. So he's not having his cake and eating it too at any one of these spots. So I think he's waiting for one of those teams to shake up their position a little bit. Maybe the Tigers to give him another guaranteed year. Maybe the Cubs to go a little bit more guaranteed money or raise the average annual value for the Toronto to, I don't know what Toronto could do to embrace or to convince him there, but we shall see. Let's see here. Presumably, but less confident than ever at this point. I will say, as far as Bregman goes, his market is just so clear. I just don't understand, outside of Bregman just not being happy with the offers, what the issue would be. And that leads you to believe that it is the contract that's the issue. That means this thing could take a little bit longer if he's really that stuck up about the issue. If not, if he's willing to finally bend as we get closer to spring training, then we could finally have some resolution there. Presumably, unless we're less confident than ever. Confusing. Rafe, going to wake up to a notice at 3:37 a.m. Bregman to Cubs some random Tuesday. I don't know about 3 o'clock. Now, 11 o'clock has been the hour that we see some crazy deals happen. So around 11 has been the number. In fact, let's head over to X before we head out for the night and just see if anything else is happening this evening. Trey Mancini, they already mentioned that one. Hayward. Nothing else there. Alrighty. Wish I could cry a few million. That'd be nice. I'd love an extra million, not going to lie. I'd love $1 million. I'd love anything even close to that, honestly. All right. Got to get some rest, my friends. Appreciate you guys taking the time and sticking with us through all this time. Appreciate the super chats you guys have sent us over the last couple of weeks. Wanted to thank you guys once again for those. And just really enjoy talking baseball, basketball, whatever we talk about in our lives. Really just appreciate all you guys' support, joining our channel, and just having fun with me in the chat. So we'll be live again tomorrow evening. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. If you are new here, join our community. Spam those hearts in the chat if you don't mind. Really does help us out. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. If you want additional ways to get notifications when we do go live, we will post it there as well. Alrighty, y'all have a great evening. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Stay safe out there, everybody.